Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this podcast, then I'd greatly appreciate it if you left it a 5-star rating and a review on whatever podcast app it is that you are listening to. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then please subscribe and give this video a like and leave a comment. Today, I had an idea that came to mind, and I want to talk about how we can handle resistance. I've even been just toying around with the title of this episode because I've wanted to call it How to Overcome Resistance, How to Fight Resistance, and for some reason, just these terms that involve some kind of force or violence about the nature of resistance, especially when we're talking about the resistance within ourselves, it just didn't feel right. It didn't seem right. And so I just want to contemplate on this as I'm unraveling it myself, and hopefully it's something that you can find some inspiration from on just the nature of resistance within yourself as well. Having grown up in the Christian tradition, one of the things I am very used to hearing is how when you're trying to do something that is deemed to be godly and you run into resistance, then that means that the enemy, Satan, the devil, is trying to stop you from doing what God has intended for you to do. Having stepped away from that tradition, that really hasn't changed a whole lot. And for me, it has really shown how we can look at things through this more spiritual lens, and we can come up with all sorts of justifications for why we are experiencing some kind of discomfort or pushback to what it is that we believe or think is the best thing for us to do. And when I really started to ponder that, it just really it really stuck out to me that the nature of our journeys, the nature of our lives is working through resistance in all sorts of forms. Resistance in a lot of ways are these beliefs that we have that limit our ability to take the steps necessary to do what we want to accomplish. And how do we handle that? It's probably something that's been a through line in many of the previous episodes, and yet it's still significant in many ways that for us to handle the resistance that we experience, we are often told that in order to overcome, if I may use that word here, the resistance in our lives means we have to fight. We have to exert power over it. Or even going the total opposite direction and just saying, you know what, the only thing you can do is just let go and let God. What I have found to be the most beneficial in my life has been neither of those options. It's not a matter of needing to fight and resist against whatever is causing the resistance, nor is it really the best thing to just stop at the resistance and just let some higher power come in and do whatever it's going to do. What has been beneficial has been engaging the resistance with curiosity and compassion. Two things that I say a ton in just my life with my clients in these episodes. Curiosity and compassion. Because a lot of the things that we are doing, a lot of the things that we're trying to do, the ways that we are trying to change, there's a good chance that these changes are really rubbing up or even pushing up against something that is so ingrained within us that we were taught by others that these changes just are not natural. So the resistance that we're often finding is not even something that is outside of ourselves, but something that is within us, something that is wanting to keep us within the status quo, wanting to not rock the boat, however metaphor or analogy you want to use for this phenomenon of we are trying to make a change and something within us is trying to keep us from making that change. That is the nature of resistance. The nature of resistance is, in a lot of cases, fear. If I really think about it, fear is a driving force for many of us. In fact, I've heard many people in the recovery communities that I listen to, when they talk about the science of addictions and maladaptive coping mechanisms, most of the decisions that we make are not necessarily an effort for us to find something that makes us feel good. It's oftentimes, in fact, I've heard like some say as many as 80% of the decisions that we make is to avoid pain. Not to find pleasure, but to avoid pain. Making these changes to become the heroes in our own stories, it's something that's going to make us uncomfortable. Some would even go so far as to say it's a painful process. Change is uncomfortable. You can think about it in terms of metamorphosis. When a caterpillar gets into its cocoon and it has this dramatic change in its body, well, it has to break free from the cocoon. It's probably not something that is, say, pleasurable. It's probably not something that is pleasant. It's probably something where the butterfly, as it's trying to break free from its self-inflicted bondage, it is having to fight. It is having to strive. It is having to overcome this resistance in order to fully embody the change that it has made. For us in modern society, especially when we live in this time where, well, it's different these days than it's been, but there's a lot of us, especially if you're a white male American, that you wake up in the morning and you don't have any fear of leaving your home and experiencing some kind of violence, some kind of attack upon your person. And I have often found that when we're in that kind of security, we oftentimes will find something else to be afraid of. Our survival instinct, our amygdala that wants to keep us safe, if it doesn't have anything that is a external threat, it will come up with something, because it's not going to just sit there and twiddle its thumbs and say, you know what, everything's hunky-dory. No, it's going to look for something that is a threat. And it can perceive threats in all sorts of different areas. One of these threats is when we break free from our normal routine. It's actually one of the things that makes habits so difficult to work through and to change, is because we want to be creatures. Well, maybe not want is the right word there. A lot of times we want to change, but the inner workings of our minds and our bodies don't want to change, because change is scary. Change is uncertain. And instead of trying to resist, instead of trying to belittle, instead of trying to just power through and fight this fear, I feel like we can make so much more progress. I think that we can make so much more progress if we instead look at this through the lens of curiosity and compassion. Why are you so reluctant to change? Why am I so reluctant to change? Why are there so many things that I want to do that I just keep putting on the back burner or up on a higher shelf to deal with another time? And when I get around to sorting through that closet, suddenly this idea that I have always wanted to do is just covered in dust because it's been ages since I've gone back to it. What is the drive behind that? And when I am really honest with myself, a lot of this comes down to fear. I am afraid, oftentimes, of what other people are going to think or say about what I'm trying to do. I am afraid of judgment. I am afraid that what I try and do, what I try and put out there, is not going to be accepted. Well, fear is uncomfortable. In some cases, fear can even be painful. And what does my inner workings want to do? They want to avoid that pain. They want to avoid that discomfort. And so, what do? I don't make the changes that I want to make. Even if I have the best of intentions, the changes are so daunting, and the outcomes are so uncertain that I would rather just stay in place, because at least I know what I'm going to experience if I wake up tomorrow and I haven't made any of the changes. That's comfortable. So curiosity can help lead me to this understanding. And this is, of course, me talking here. This is my experience. You might have something entirely different. Maybe there actually are some external forces in your life that are making it difficult for you to make these changes. Maybe it's certain family members, maybe it's authority figures in your life that are trying to direct you towards something that they think you would be good at. Regardless, because we have such a nature to avoid pain, we can oftentimes give into the fear in order to stay in a place where we feel comfortable. Now, knowing that, how can I be compassionate towards myself, towards others that are going through something very similar? There is a very good and specific reason why you have these fears. I have my fears for very legitimate reasons. And those fears oftentimes are old. They are fears, they are thoughts, they are beliefs, they are feelings that have been with us for a long time. I experience a lot of rejection and discrimination from my male peers and even male authority figures when I was in middle school. Naturally, I tend to I tend to be afraid of what the men in my life are going to say about what I choose to do. That is an old fear. That is an old driving force. In my life, I could even call that ancient. And if I am compassionate to myself, then I can understand that the reason why I have these fears, the reason why I'm choosing to not make some of these changes that I really want to make, is because there is still a part within me that is so afraid of what other people are going to say, especially men, what other male authorities are going to say about the changes that I want to make. Great. That's not something I want to fight, because this part within me is so entrenched and it is so ready for a battle that there's no way I'm going to win against it. But what if instead I just engage this part within me with love and understanding? Hey, man, I know you're afraid of what these other people are going to say. Man, I wanted to come sit with you in that. Yeah, I'm still afraid of that today. I can love myself in this discomfort. And I can also step up to be a new authority within my own life in this area. In a lot of the recovery circles that I have been trained in, we would call this reparenting ourselves. I would be reparenting myself and giving myself a new lens to look at life. I would give myself the love and compassion and support that this part within me needs in order to step away from that fear and to find its strength. To find that while it's scary, yes, it's okay to be scared, and it's also okay for us to take these chances. The change doesn't need to be scary. As much as our minds and our bodies are telling us this is scary, in a lot of cases, it's just uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. There could legitimately be failure on the other end of this. That doesn't mean that that's the end. Maybe we just need to change our strategies. Maybe we need to change our environment. Maybe we need to change the support networks that we have. Maybe what is important for us to do is to still try and strive and skin our knees, get those bruises, fall down, pick ourselves up. Maybe instead of putting so much stock in what we are afraid of, maybe instead we put stock in our resilience. Maybe that change is going to bring us to something so much better than we could even imagine. But even that is uncertain. We know exactly what's going to happen if we just stay where we are and don't do anything to work through the resistance that we experience in our lives. We know that outcome. That's going to be waking up tomorrow and having the exact same thing as what happened today. That's going to be the status quo. So how do we handle this resistance? It's not by fighting it. It's not by overcoming. For me, it really is trying to understand with curiosity and just question, why am I doing this? Why am I making the decisions that I am? Why is it so hard for me to take these steps that I want to take? And then once we know what is driving this, then we can become compassionate. We can understand and love on ourselves in the ways that we are trying to protect ourselves, legitimately protect ourselves. And with a tender hand, we can lead ourselves forward and out of these fortresses that we have surrounded ourselves with in order to protect ourselves and experience a brand new life. One that is full of promise and hope, and yes, fear and uncertainty. The only way that we are going to become the heroes of our own stories is if we step into that uncertainty. And sometimes, just like all of the great heroes that we see in our world and through literature and in history, some of the steps that we take, we're going to stumble. We're going to fall. The important thing, though, is that we get ourselves back up. That's what's important. The heroes tend to be those who continue to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, learn from their mistakes, and try again. That can be the new normal in your life. That's the new normal I'm striving for. And I firmly believe that curiosity and compassion can get us there, more so than fighting and striving. It's great to strive to be someone better. It's great to strive to not become someone that you don't want to become. There is a saying, though, that what we resist persists. This is something I've heard so many times from the Neurosomatic Intelligence podcast that I listen to every single week. And they talk about how when we are trying to resist something within our beliefs, within our being, in our attitudes and our behaviors, we're just continuing to give more strength to it. But what happens if we instead look at these behaviors through a lens of love and respect? That can make the world a difference in the changes that you want to make. I hope that you have found this conversation inspiring and it has given you some hope in what you can do in the future. If you have any questions or comments about this, you're welcome to send me an email at questions.btcpod@gmail.com. You can also find that email address in the description of this episode, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. And until next time, live strong for today.